Kelly Evans with the Wall Street Journal.
Congressman Paul, this morning when he suspended his campaign, Governor Huntsman said the Republican presidential race has, quote, degenerated into an onslaught of negative and personal attacks not worthy of the American people. You have been particularly scathing in your ads against the other candidates up here on stage tonight. Do you agree with Governor Huntsman that these attacks should be abandoned?
Well, they should be abandoned if you're not telling the truth. But if you're exposing a voting record, I think it's quite proper. There was one ad that we used against Senator Santorum, and I only had one problem, is I couldn't get all the things in I wanted to say in 1 minute. But, you know, we mentioned No Child Left Behind, and that he supported deficits ×5, raising the national debt, and that he voted for prescription drug programs, as well as he voted against right to work. And I could have added, you know, things like he voted for Sarbanes-Oxley. So my only regret is that I couldn't get enough in that 1 minute that I should have.
Congressman Paul.
Hold on. Senator Santorum, you're going to get a question next, but respond, please, to Congressman Paul.
Look, Congressman Paul has been quoting sources like Crew, which is a George Soros or left-wing back organization, saying that I was corrupt. And in fact, throughout his entire ad, he quotes a lot of left-wing organizations. Well, of course, left-wing organizations say a lot of bad things about me. I would expect them, and I wear that as a badge of honor, not something that I'm ashamed of. With respect to some of the votes that they listed, I admit I'm a strong conservative, but I'm not perfect. President Bush's signature initiative was No Child Left Behind. I voted for it. I shouldn't have. It was something that I said, and I'll say publicly, that we should repeal. In fact, we should repeal all of federal government's role in primary and secondary education. And if you give me the opportunity, I'll do that.
Bailouts.
Jerry Sand has the next question.
Congressman Paul, South Carolina has 7 major military bases and thousands of people employed in the defense industry. But you want to make major cuts in defense spending, several $100 billion in the coming years, that inevitably would cost South Carolina jobs. What do you say to people in this state who worry that your military plans would hurt the national security and cost South Carolina jobs?
I would say your question suggests you're very confused about my position. I want to cut money, overseas money. That's what I want to do. I want to cut military money. I don't want to cut defense money. I want to bring the troops home. I'd probably have more bases here at home. We were closing them down in the 1990s and building them overseas. That's how we got into trouble. So we would save a lot more money and have a stronger national defense, and that's what we should do. But to say that we would be weaker is absolutely wrong, because, and another important thing you should consider is the fact that the military is behind me more than the others. I get twice as much money from the active military duties than all the other candidates put together. So they're saying that I'm on the right track. They're sick and tired of those wars. They're sick and tired of the nation building and the policing activity. But to say that we would have less money for defense, we actually have more money. And if I may, I'd like to go back to the international financial thing.
Congressman, just to be clear, your plan calls for freezing defense spending at 2006 levels, which is well below where we are today.
You still don't understand.
What's he missing, Congressman?
You don't understand there's a difference between military spending and defense spending. Just because you spend $1 billion on an embassy in Baghdad, bigger than the Vatican, you consider that defense spending. I consider that waste. So, now, if you want to, a little while ago we were talking about, funding the unemployed. Of course, that should be privatized, and I don't support it. But I don't support cutting that off like that. I'd cut some of this military spending, like Eisenhower advised us. Watch out for the military-industrial complex. Defend this country. We have to have a strong national defense, but we don't get strength by diluting ourselves in 900 bases, 130 countries. That is where the problem is. But you need to understand that there's a difference between just military spending and defense spending, just to spend money. We understand this domestically. If you spend more money domestically, we know it's wrong, but we're supposed to spend more money, and that's conservative. I've never quite understood this. We're supposed to be conservative, spend less money.
I'd like to ask a question about keeping money for all of the candidates down the line. What is the highest federal income tax any American should have to pay? We're looking for a number.
20% flat tax. Simple. Keep it simple.
Senator Santorum.
My plan has two rates, 10 and 28%, which is the highest rate under Ronald Reagan when he cut taxes.
Governor Romney.
I'd like to get it down to 25%, but right now it's at 35%, so people better pay what's legally required. But ultimately, let's get it down as low as we possibly can. If it's 20, if it's 25, but paying more than 25%, I think is taking too much out of our pockets.
So the highest you had was 35.
Well, that's what the law is right now. But 25 is where I'd like to see us go.
Speaker Gingrich.
I'd like to see it be a flat tax of 15%, and I'd like to see us reduce government to meet the revenue, not raise revenue to meet the government.
Congressman Paul.
Well, we should have the lowest tax that we've ever had, and up until 1913 it was 0%. What's so bad about that? Now, I would like to follow up on that because I think the question on taxes is generally misleading. Because anytime you spend money, it's a tax. You might tax, you might borrow, you might inflate. The vicious tax is attacking the American people, the retired people today, is the inflation tax. The devaluation of the currency, the standard of living is going down, and you need to address that. And that's why I want to make the inflation tax zero as well.
So your answer is zero.
Zero.
Okay, about taxes, Kelly?
Governor Romney, Speaker Gingrich, Senator Santorum, and now vocally tonight Senator Perry, Governor Perry, are calling for you to release your tax records. The Obama campaign is asking for the same thing. Governor, will you release your income tax records?
You know, I looked at what has been done in campaigns in the past with Senator McCain and President George W. Bush and others. They've tended to release tax records in April or tax season. I hadn't planned on releasing tax records because the law requires us to release all of our assets, all the things we own. That I've already released. It's a pretty full disclosure. But you know, if that's been the tradition, and I'm not opposed to doing that, time will tell. But I anticipate that most likely I'm going to get asked to do that around the April time period, and I'll keep that open.
Talking about Maine Capital right out at the beginning of Christopher's question. Mitt Romney spent the entire night below the line on that. Santorum as well as Perry. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics. Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics.
Thank you.
Ron Paul again, seen as the only one giving real straight answers on some of these topics.